So in the Northern California foothills of the Klamath and the Siskiyou Mountains at an elevation of about 2,000 feet, here we have a pretty interesting plant. This is Chamaecyparis lawsoniana, and it's a tree that's endemic, that is, it only grows in northwestern California and southwestern Oregon. Chamaecyparis lawsoniana is very common in the horticultural trade. They use them a lot in yards, and you know, sometimes it's got a negative affiliation because it's, you know, one of the horticultural atrocities of suburban landscaping. But the Brits found this tree and they really went nuts with it. There's a lot of different cultivars. Regardless, it's a pretty fascinating plant, and it occurs both in non-serpentine soil, just you know, regular ass soils such as this, and it also occurs in the ultramafic soils. And where it occurs in the ultramafic soils, trees top out at about 5 or 6 feet. You know, but they can endure that harsh chemistry of the ultramafic soils. Regardless, it's a pretty fascinating plant. It's easy to confuse with incense cedar, which it grows sympatrically with. That is, they both grow together. They share a range. But the Chamaecyparis lawsoniana almost always is found growing with wet feet. That is, it's growing in riparian areas or in areas where the soil is constantly moist. The sad thing about this, though, is there was an introduced parasite, a root-rotting parasite, that's actually a close relative of the infamous Irish potato blight in the genus Phytophthora, which literally means plant destroyer. Now, some people misidentify. They make the mistake of assuming Phytophthora is a fungus. It's actually not. The interesting thing about Phytophthora is it's most closely related to brown algae. So it's basically like an algae that became parasitic. And it spreads through, basically, well, it's a water mold, and it spreads by what you would call oozes. So it spreads by little ooze spores in the soil. So anyway, the species infecting this Chamaecyparis is Phytophthora lateralis. There's also Phytophthora cinnamomi, and there's another one, Phytophthora ramorum, which is killing a lot of oaks in California. Good news is, you know, one out of maybe every, God, I don't know, 10, maybe a lot higher, one out of every 20 or 30 trees proves resilient to it. So, you know, you'll go in groves of this tree and you'll see all 100 feet of trunk just brown and dead, and then the one next to it displays some resistance and it's still alive and green. Like I said, the Phytophthora spreads by ooze spores, which are transported by water or by boots, or especially in the horticultural trade, in soil and containers. Moving right along, isn't that a beautiful tree, eh? Moving right along, you got some big leaf maples, pretty ubiquitous species throughout the West, species of maple. They get super big up there in Oregon and Washington and what the shit, and you'll see entire trees just covered in mass. Over here, we got a lovely lily. This is a Lilium pardalinum, pretty common, and you can see they're in the final stages of flower maturity right here. A couple of them have already gone to seed. The flowers have dehisced, and you got a little capsule beneath there waiting to mature, and then disperse the seed all over there. You got the typical world leaves of the lily family. Lots of species of lily in California. Lots of species of Lilium. Some, like the ones down in the Angeles National Forest, Lilium perryi, are extremely endangered and will probably be extinct in the wild soon. And then others are doing quite well, like Lilium pardalinum. It's ubiquitous, etc. You know, over here we got another little species of maple. This one more like a shrub maple, very diminutive. Acer circiniatum. Also likes riparian areas. Doesn't grow down low though, you know, and it's a riparian tree. It likes those cool mountain areas. It's actually growing pretty low here, but just because you got the stream. And where's what I wanted to show you over here. Ooh, this is a nice one over here. Now this is a pretty, it's more common the further north you go. It's more of like a Pleistocene relic than California. That is, it's a relic of the Pleistocene when there was more moisture availability. Temperatures were a little bit cooler. This one's probably going to get knocked out in certain locales as the climate change progresses, at least in the next century. This is Pacific Yew, Taxus brevifolia, and it was discovered in the 90s that a compound in the bark of this beautiful bastard, I believe it was Tax, I forget the name of the compound, but it had anti-cancer properties. So a bunch of people went nuts, started scraping bark off this. I don't know what the fuck they thought they were going to do, if they were going to, you know, all of a sudden they're a pharmaceutical company and they think they're going to, you know, distill this in their goddamn garage and make, I don't know what. Anyway, luckily, a few years later, it was discovered that it could be easily synthesized in a lab, at you know, a quarter of the cost as it takes, because you got to get a lot of that goddamn bark on these trees. And this is actually one of the oldest and tallest Pacific yews I've seen. They're normally a very small plant, at least in California. They don't get that big. They're a very small tree. Either way, it's a true conifer, and the cones, what you would think of cones, they're not technically cones, they're arrows, but it's the same primitive reproductive structural thing going on. They're little red berries, of course, and I think if you eat them, you die or you puke or something. I don't know. You know, don't eat them. Don't eat them anyway. They're meant to be dispersed by birds. Oh, this is actually a drag to see out here. This is the invasive Himalayan blackberry, and it can easily take over, and it will outcompete everything here. It forms these massive stalks that you got to cut out, and of course, there's no one doing, you know, invasive plant mitigation out here. You know, the word alone would probably send some of the rednecks into shock. They don't like money being spent for that. Speaking of which, I seen some guy the other day. He had a bumper sticker on the back of his car. It said "Earth first," and then below it said, "We'll get to other planets later." You know, yeah, he's really striking a blow against the liberal tree hugging menace. Fucking mouth breather. It's like saying I'm gonna burn down my house. You know, just to shock somebody. Anyway, hopefully he'll flip his truck and die. Regardless, let's see. There's a species of rare fern I was looking for up here called Botricium. Real fucking odd one. Let's see if I can find... that's nice. I'm bleeding from the blackberries, the invasive blackberries. Here's a prime example of the problem with fire suppression. Natural wildfires have been a part of this ecosystem for thousands of years, except this area has not burned in a long time. Probably should, but you can see these trees are just... I mean, these are all Callicedrus decurrens. They're not all going to be able to make it. A couple are going to have to go. You know, normally a low-intensity wildfire would come through, clean everything out, kill all the parasites and all the bugs, get rid of the duff, leave a nice, healthy deposition of nutrients in the form of ash on the soil, and basically clean house, give it a nice trim. Next year it comes back. Well, the problem is when you suppress fires for so long, when you finally do get a fire, and you always will get a fire, which is funny to me when people build these McMansions in these wildlands. When you finally do get a fire, it's not a low intensity one. It's been happening every, you know, intermittently between every 20 to every 80 years on the landscape. Oh look, it's one of the nice rattlesnake plantain orchids. Terrestrial orchid, Goodyear oblangifolia. When you finally do get a fire, it's not these low intensity ones, it's a massive one that devastates the whole landscape to such an extent that the landscape cannot recuperate, that it takes much longer to recuperate than it otherwise would. Here's a real juicy bastard, and I kind of can't believe that it's still flowering since, you know, these are normally going off by June 1st, and they're probably wrapped up by the second week of June in this region. This is Cephalanthera austinae, and it's the terrestrial achlorophyllus, that is, it doesn't produce any chlorophyll because it doesn't photosynthesize, orchid. Cephalanthera austinae. Now, Cephalanthera is a genus, I don't know how many species, probably 16, mostly in Europe and Asia. This is the only species in the genus that occurs in North America, and it's also the only one, I believe, that's completely mycoheterotrophic. Say it again, mycoheterotrophic. Don't be a prick, all right? Mycoheterotrophic, meaning it parasitizes fungi on the ground. And this most of these things are pretty specific when it comes to what species of fungi they parasitize. Cephalanthera, that is, most mycoheterotrophs are pretty specific when it comes to what species of fungi they parasitize. But Cephalanthera austinae is a generalist for the family Thelophoraceae, which is a species of fungi. I don't know too much about them. I know quite a few are mycorrhizal. Anyway, this bastard steals from fungus in the ground, and it's a pretty amazing plant. You can see right there, as you get close up in that morphology. And here, you know, the common name for this guy is the phantom orchid, and it makes sense. It looks like a ghost sticking up out the ground. You can see right there, you got that lower lip, that labellum. That's the safe word you use in the orchid dungeon. And then up top, that little knob right there in the center, the pollinia, the two nodules of pollen, the two nodules that are aggregated masses of pollen, are below that. Overall, this is a wonderful fucking plant. It occurs a lot. It's a West Coast species. It occurs a lot in Oregon, in Washington, You get it in, I believe, up the British Columbia too. And there's a couple relict populations that are probably going to be wiped out soon, just because it's too hot for them down there, down in Santa Barbara County in Southern California over there. So that's Cephalanthera austiniae, and you get them coming up in these conifer forests, and basically they're indicative of a very rich soil. You got to have a healthy soil with a diverse biota in order to have these going off. You're not going to find them in a pine plantation at Sierra Pacific planted after they logged everything. Pretty cool fucking. Look at that, you sly bastard. That's what I seen the spiders do. I seen them do that. They hang out on the flowers, okay, and they wait for the pollinators to come by, and then they ambush them. It's like when you see the guys going, I seen how they steal stuff from your garage too. They got to prop the door up with a car jack, and then they send the little guy in there, and then he goes in there and he opens the door and lets all his buddies in, and they clean you out. It's not really like that at all. But look at that, pretty fascinating, huh? Now this is what you would call these plants right here. These are what you would call MFLs. Now it's quite different from DFL, which you may have remembered from previous videos. DFL, of course, is dainty fucking lily. MFL is it could be motherfucking lily, or it could be massive fucking lily, which is what these are. And it's more interesting to note that they're dryland lilies. That is, they're not occurring in a stream or in a riparian area. They're just kind of going off on this dry hillside. And they can do that because they got a massive bulb in the ground that contains all the moisture and nutrients and carbohydrates that they need, that they've harvested from the sun over the past however many goddamn years they've been here. What, 6 to 20? I don't know. This is Lilium washingtonianum. It's a pretty marvelous plant, and you get another variety further up the mountain here called purpurescens. It's got a little bit of a pink to it, and they're just popping off. It's a pretty nice thing to see. This area especially has a lot of lily diversity in it. You got Lilium rubescens, the redwood lily, Lilium columbianum, Lilium pardalinum. Further to the west, you got Lilium maritimum. Also got Lilium calagii. Look at it. What's in the background? Oh, you got a nice lupine going off too. How about that, huh? Now, do you remember I mentioned MFLs? I mean, do you listen? Do you pay attention? You remember any of this stuff? Or you learn anything? Or you just like hearing that silly fucking accent, which you probably find amusing. Oh my God, I'm gonna break my ass getting up here. Anyway, if you remember, MFLs, oh look, it's the little skink. Those things, they drop their tails when they get scared. I feel kind of bad because I don't see them a lot of times, and they drop their tails. Their whole goddamn tail falls off, and then I feel bad that, I made them do that. Oh, he's kind of cute. Look at that guy. I'm gonna have to get back with you. I don't know. These lizards always look so skeptical, but then they let you get close to them. It's kind of sending mixed messages, What are you doing? Why aren't you running away? You could see how some prick's outdoor cat could just mangle these things. They're so easy to catch. I could probably reach out and catch it with my hand. And indeed, free-roaming outdoor cats do contribute massively to declines in local reptile populations. So you should keep your cute little bastards indoors. Anyway, I'm not much of a herpetologist, at least when it comes to these lizards, but I'm gonna have to say this is a skink. I might be completely wrong on that. I'll get back to you with an ID. Consult one of my herpetologist friends. Look, he just let me get right up there. What are you doing? Why ain't you running away, huh? You want a cricket or something? I could go get you a cricket. You want me to? Let me see what I can find. Oh, well, that was nice. Anyway, remember I was talking about MFLs, and this is one of the most grandiose MFLs that the California state has to offer. This is Lilium rubescens, and it's an endemic. That is, it only grows in the state of California. And lucky enough to catch it, well, a couple of flowers are still at full anthesis. Common name for this is the redwood lily, and it's endemic to northwest California. Real beaut too. Just comes up in dryland conifer. I mean, not dryland, but seasonally dry conifer forest. Look, you could see how those guys do it. You see how I do it. Look at it, huh? He's just waiting for a pollinator to come, and then he just goes and just nabs him. Oh my God! Look at those! Look at those beautiful recurved tepals. And then, of course, you got the 6 stamens. Remember, it's a multiple of trees since lilies are monocots. And then there you got a central stigma. And these look like they're just about done. But look how shiny and glabrous that is. This is such a beautiful goddamn plant. And I've only seen it a handful of times. Get your typical whorled leaves right there. Fused and whorled leaves. Wonder how big that bulb is. Jesus, look at these guys. They're like the predatory lenders of the floral world. Look at it. It's a lousy day to be a pollinator if you're in this area, huh? 2 of them? Really? Huh? You guys don't compete for territory? Huh? Nobody's claimed this turf yet? Predatory lenders, personal injury attorneys, family law attorneys, used car salesmen, a whole bunch. I mean, they're really, you know, there must be, I guess I believe in reincarnation now, huh? Anyway, Lilium rubescens, wonderful fucking plant, rare. It's, you know, lost a lot of ground of habitat loss, and it's just, you know, it was a rare plant to begin with. Only really occurs in Northwest California. And like I said, remember there's some other interesting species of lilies out there. Those are the DFLs. This is an MFL. The DFLs would be genera like Fritillaria, Calochortus, Clintonia, etc. All in the family Liliaceae. But these bastards are pretty magnificent. And I've seen look down in Southern California, you got Lilium Humboldtii. Those get up to like 8 feet tall. Imagine an 8-foot tall spike just covered in, you know, 36 huge orange flowers. They're real nice. Okay, so up here you got fireweed, Camerion angustifolium, and it's got a pretty wide range. It goes, you know, Northern California all the way up into British Columbia, Alaska, I believe even. It's an evening primrose, Onograceae, which is a pretty diverse family known for their 4-petaled flowers and their specific type of fruit that's, you know, a certain type of capsule. Anyway, Camerion angustifolium is called fireweed because it comes up after wildfires, but really any kind of disturbance such as this logging, which doesn't seem to be that bad of a form of logging. It's not a you know, just abject clear cut. Anyway, it just comes up after any kind of disturbance. So let's go up there and take a look at it. Look at this nice mattia too. Remember, these are in the tarweed tribe of Asteraceae, and they're unique because the marginal seeds, the achenes, oh, they're glandular as hell. They're so sticky and nice. The marginal seeds, the achenes, don't have a pappus. They don't have that dandelion pappus like a lot of the Asteraceae do. They just look like little kind of almost crescent-shaped, prickly bastards. And it was one of these that made it to the Hawaiian Islands. The seed of these probably stuck on some bird or something. Made it to the Hawaiian Islands, you know, 5-6 million years ago, and then radiated into the Hawaiian silver swords, which are a wonderful fucking plant. You got to look those up if you get a chance. They get 6 feet tall. They're blue and they grow on these volcanoes. If I can get up here without breaking my ass. Fuck. Check out this fireweed. Oh, you know what? I might break my ass here. I might break my ass. There you go. Anyway, looking up there up close at the fireweed, you get a typical Onograceae flower pattern. You got that long ass stigma, a 4-lobed stigma. See that central part? Remember what I told you? That's the female part that receives the pollen. Then you got those stamens, and I believe there's 5 of them. And then you got those 4 petals. And you can see once it's pollinated, if I don't fuck this, yeah, they got an inferior ovary, meaning that the capsule is behind. The capsule subtends the flower. So that flower gets pollinated, the petals dehisce, and then you got a little tube, that little capsule, it's a tube capsule, and that's where the seed comes out. And then when the seed comes out of this, it's actually interesting. It's got a dandelion-like dispersal mechanism. It's got that white fuzz, and that's how it ends up everywhere. Because it blows around, and then it lands somewhere, and then they sprout, they germinate when there's any kind of disturbance, like a wildfire, logging, etc. What the shit. Big population of those redwood lilies. Anyway, some of you might know of this plant because, you know, when you get a rash on your ass, or, you know, your muscles hurt or something, you get a balm, and it's normally marketed as having this plant in it, at least a species of this plant. This is Arnica. This one in particular is Arnica discoidea, so called because it lacks the daisy rays that so many of the members of the sunflower family have. A lot don't, though. A lot of them just have discoid flowers. So, like, for this one, in this case, it's called Arnica discoidea. You can notice it's heavily glandular. Look at those phyllaries. Remember those Fileries are the bracts, the upside-down roof and shingles that completely surround that capitula, that flower head. And you got a bunch of little tiny hairs on there. Glandular as hell. Smells pretty good too. But not a trademark of Arnica's though. And you can't really see it too well here. But the distal leaves, proximal down here, distal up here. The distal leaves tend to be opposite. Okay, you can see right there. They're not quite opposite. But it's good enough. That's opposite enough for me. Anyway, there you go. Arnica discoidea. Lots of different species in the genus Arnica throughout the Intermountain West. Real lovely plant. Smells pretty good. Oh, wow. That's a massive pile of bear shit. And it looks like it's been eaten pretty healthy, too. Look at all that fur and whatnot in it. At least I hope it's bear shit. If it's mountain lion shit, it's a little bit different of a story. Who knows? Oh, look at that. You can see some of the clear cuts that have made Northern California so famous. This is nothing. Holy shit. Look at a satellite view of northern Sierra Nevada, and you'll just see a bunch of chicken pox. Just all that land getting exposed to solar radiation. You know, I'm not against logging, but it's too much, you know. And here it's not that bad, but if you look, like I said, look at the northern Sierra Nevada on a Google satellite view. It'll blow your goddamn mind. It looks like forest herpes. Anyway, what you have here is a very nice and very beautiful, roughly 150 to 200 million year old, that's Jurassic in age, slab. That whole thing is one continuous slab of granitic rock surrounded by much older ultramafic rocks. Now you can see the way it's eroded. It's got a bunch of those little spires and little cracks and crags and what the shit. And if you're thinking that looks like a nice place for plants that are Pleistocene relics, that is left over from a different climate 20,000 years ago, this is a refugia form, you'd be correct. There's quite a few rare plants up there, most notably a rare spruce called Picea breweriana. These fucking Latin names sometimes even get my tongue all fucked up. Picea breweriana, named after brewer, not a dead white guy, named after a brewer that grows in there. And it only grows in northwest California and a little bit into southern Oregon. It's a very rare plant that's basically left over from the Pleistocene, from a much different climate than we have today. And that's the only place in the world that grows. And one of the places it grows is in there. And it grows in those little narrow cracks and what the shit. And some of them get pretty big. It's a very slow-growing, weeping blue spruce. Pretty beautiful. There's also up there on those crags, on those walls, I believe it was rock climbers that discovered it too. Someone who happened to be a rock climber and a botanist. I'm sure many rock climbers went by them and didn't pay attention to what the shit they were, had no idea, didn't really care. And then one went up who was a botanist and discovered a few new species. One new species of Campanulaceae and one new species in the rose family. And that's where they grow. They don't grow on the flat ground. They grow only on those vertical escarpments right there. Anyway, a couple years ago, saw a massive Lilium washingtonianum, a subspecies purpurescens. It's probably 4 or 5 feet tall and just covered in beautiful goddamn lily blooms. But it appears to be gone now. Not sure what really happened with that. Up here at about 5,000 feet, you can see they're logging too. So they just, when they do that, it exposes all this ground to ultraviolet radiation. Plants that like a little bit of shade just get full exposure. It drastically alters the whole landscape. But yeah, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe it's gone. I don't know. Know a couple other places to find it. Anyway, that's it for this MFL segment. Hope you enjoyed yourself. Pay attention to the land around you. If you want to throw me $5-10, maybe, if you're still watching this, you know. And I'm not asking. I don't need to guilt you for it. Okay. I'm not trying to guilt you, you know. If you don't got it, you don't got it. But if you do want to throw me $5 or $10 for a burrito or some gas money so I can keep making these ridiculous ass videos for you, my Venmo is Society is Hell. Okay? All one word, just like it sounds, real nice. Society is Hell. Throw me $5 or $10, you know, and then maybe say a couple years down the road, you need a burrito or some gas money, I'll throw it back at you, you know. Do what you can. And of course, if you can't, don't worry about it.